get all the rewards for this.
There was a time when I was genuinely worried about Star Wars. As if the mediocre sequel trilogy wasn't bad enough, the video games industries had to deal with one bad FPS title after another. It probably didn't help that Disney had decided to sign a 10-year deal with EA to publish a number of new Star Wars games. Frankly, they would be the last company I'd want around such a popular IP. So come 2019, I was struggling to find a reason to care about their latest entry in the Star Wars universe. Needless to say, I was surprised then when I learned that Respawn Entertainment, the company behind the Titanfall franchise, announced that they would be creating a new Star Wars game. Unlike EA's other titles, this was going to be a single-player action game featuring a cast of original characters and their exploits in a galaxy far, far away. But does it capture the charm and the spirit of this vast galaxy, or does it struggle to simply hold itself together under the weight of its expectations? Let's find out. This is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Taking place 5 years after Order 66, the young Jedi Cal Kestis has managed to survive the destruction of the Jedi Order. Since then, he's been spending the last few years keeping a low profile on the planet Bracca, working to tear apart old ships. However, after an accident nearly results in the death of a friend, Cal desperately calls upon the Force to save his life. This draws the attention of the villainous Empire, who are hell-bent on preventing the Jedi Order from returning to power. After coming close to capture, Cal manages to escape Bracca with the help of 2 rebel fighters, Grease, the pilot of your ship the Mantis, and former Jedi Knight Sierra. Together, they're able to guide Cal to the planet Bogano, where he learns of an ancient holocron left behind by Jedi Master Cordova. Within it contains a list of Force-sensitive children from all across the galaxy. With that list in their possession, Cal and company will be able to restore the Jedi Order and fight back against the Empire. But in order to access the holocron, Cal is forced to follow Cordova's path across the galaxy, taking him everywhere from lush jungles to ancient temples and even inhospitable wastelands. Jedi Fallen Order has a wide variety of different locations for the player to explore, and you'll meet many different people along the way. From already established characters to new ones created for this story. Yet throughout it all, Cal is going to have to remain cautious, especially with the Empire and the Inquisitors relentlessly hunting him down. Of course, Cal's biggest threat on this journey isn't anything physical. Rather, it's his own past, which continues to haunt him with every step he takes. When you really break down Jedi Fallen Order's story, it's a tale of overcoming one's own grief and mistakes, which isn't an easy feat in a galaxy filled to the brim with monsters that want to kill you. Yet despite how chaotic some of the gameplay sequences can be, Fallen Order always finds the time to slow down and explore its cast of characters.
Yeah, I'm okay. You alright? No, you're not doing that again.
Each member of Cal's supporting cast has their own story to tell, and the game gives you plenty of opportunities to learn more about them. Cal's relationship with former Jedi Sierra in particular is easily one of the most compelling aspects of this game's narrative, which is only further elevated by a stellar cast and some top-notch acting. Cameron Monaghan, who you'd recognize from the TV series Gotham, perfectly captures Cal's struggles and triumphs throughout this game. There's rarely a moment when you're not invested in this story, and when you're not engaged in the narrative, then you're most likely focused on the combat. Jedi Fallen Order is what some might call space Dark Souls, but frankly its gameplay is more akin to Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. There's a clear emphasis on player maneuverability and treating each fight like a duel, which is quite fitting since Star Wars was originally influenced by Japanese culture, with the Jedi taking direct inspiration from the samurai. Combat itself can typically be broken down into 2 major components, your lightsaber and your force powers, both of which work in unison, and if you cannot master either, then you won't make it far in Fallen Order. Success in combat ultimately depends on balancing both and learning when it's best to use either, especially during the later combat encounters. There's a vast array of enemies for you to fight in Fallen Order, many of which will test you in different ways. From wild beasts to trained soldiers and even undead witches, there's more than enough variety in terms of enemy design and movesets. Although it's safe to say that you'll encounter the soldiers of the Empire more often than any other, which makes sense narrative-wise, but the developers are also smart enough to keep introducing new types of Imperial soldiers as the story goes on. This helps prevent future fights against them from becoming too repetitive. As time goes on, you'll need to learn to prioritize your targets to stop yourself from being overwhelmed. The last thing you want is to get surrounded by a horde of aggressive combatants, because if there's one thing that this game has perfectly captured from the Souls series, it would be the relentless AI. So it'd be best to learn the fundamentals of saber combat fast, and thankfully it's not overly complicated. You have your light and your heavy attacks, block and parry. As you level up, you'll gain skill points which you can then use to buy new skills to improve your survivability, like being able to throw your lightsaber or unlock new combo moves to implement. The real complexity of close quarters combat isn't in the controls, but rather the design of Cal's lightsaber. In the beginning, you'll only have a single blade on your lightsaber, which naturally limits your options in combat. But as the promotional material is made abundantly clear, Cal's lightsaber is actually a broken double-bladed saber, meaning that later on you find the means to repair your weapon, giving it a second blade. This simple addition drastically alters how you conduct yourself in combat, since both lightsaber forms have their own benefits and disadvantages. The single-bladed saber, for example, is faster and better suited to one-on-one encounters than the two-bladed saber, especially since it deals more damage, making it the best fighting style to use during boss fights or against an overly aggressive foe. By comparison, the double-bladed saber is better suited for defense. Since your lightsaber naturally functions as a shield, it allows you to deflect blaster fire back at your enemies. However, the single-bladed saber is limited since you can only parry enemies one at a time with it, while the double-bladed saber can parry multiple long-range enemies at once. This makes it ideal for dealing with heavy infantry. So essentially, you want to use the double-bladed saber when there are multiple enemies attacking you, and then switch back to the single blade once you get their numbers down. By simply giving you the option between a single or double-bladed saber, Respawn has made Fallen Order's combat significantly more elaborate than it would be if you just had a single-bladed saber. But this complexity is then dialed up to 11 once you factor in Cal's force powers. Throughout Cal's journey, he'll be confronted with memories of his past, allowing him to remember the lessons taught to him by his master. It's an elegant way to introduce new force powers to the player without having to disrupt the present-day narrative, especially since you have quite a variety of different abilities to master. When it comes to combat, there are 3 force powers which you'll have at your disposal. Force Slow, which temporarily slows the movement of your enemies, leaving them vulnerable for an attack. Force Push propels enemies, rockets, and other objects forward, making it the ideal method to send your foes off cliffs. While Force Pull can bring enemies towards you and, if done right, can get you an instant kill. These abilities are more than enough to help you alter the flow of combat, but when factoring in Cal's limited force meter and the difficulty of these many later battles, it ultimately becomes a question of when it's best to use the Force. You can regain Force energy by dealing damage, but this can take some time and not all enemies will be susceptible to your Force powers. So much like their movesets, it's best to figure out which powers work on your enemies and which don't. On the opposite side of the spectrum, should you get hurt, your health won't regenerate. Instead, your robot friend BD-1 will provide you with stims, which you can then use to heal yourself. These are in a limited supply though, which once again emphasizes the importance of avoiding damage in combat. You can find stim crates in the world to upgrade the number of health kits you have, but these are quite rare. Additionally, any skills you can unlock in relation to your stim packs won't be available until later in the game. So it's best to keep a close eye on how many times you can heal yourself as you progress throughout the game. However, should you find yourself taking too much damage or run out of energy before a big fight, then it might be best to find the nearest meditation circle to save your progress, which much like the bonfires in Dark Souls allows you to regain any lost health and energy, but it also causes all the enemies in the area to respawn. Thankfully, the placement of these save points is very generous, and there's usually one to be found before every boss or big fight in the game. Unlike From Software, Respawn isn't malicious enough to force you to spend hours searching for the next save point, only to then get killed by some enemy you didn't see coming. Actually, if I were to directly compare Fallen Order's combat with Dark Souls, you'll find Fallen Order to be the easier of the two. Thanks to your numerous force abilities, you always have a way to escape combat if you're in danger. Furthermore, your parry windows are a lot larger, giving you more time to counter your enemies' attacks. Of course, if you want combat to be as close to Dark Souls as possible, then the developers do give you the option to turn up the difficulty. Doing so will shorten your parry window, increase enemy aggression, and make you more susceptible to damage. However, I will say that normal difficulty is challenging enough for most players, so it's really up to you if you want that. Of course, whenever you're not cutting people to pieces with your lightsaber, you're busy traversing the environment, and Fallen Order has numerous ways to help you get around these vast levels. Cal is already quite nimble at the start of the game, being able to climb on walls and jump over obstacles. However, soon enough you'll learn how to double jump and run on walls, which when combined with your force abilities allows Respawn to really expand upon their level design, making them more complex than you might think at first glance. Soon enough you'll be swinging on vines like Tarzan and freezing giant machines in place to retrieve collectibles. Ultimately, traversing the environment will be a test of your own spatial awareness, timing your movements correctly so you don't die, all the while keeping an eye out for any objects you need to use the force on. This is naturally more difficult during some of the bigger action set pieces, but I found myself taking damage more often whenever Cal was forced to slide down a smooth surface. Which on paper doesn't sound like it should be difficult, but when you factor in all of Cal's other abilities, it becomes quite clear that this is one aspect of the game's traversal mechanics that struggles. Unlike wall running or climbing, whenever you're sliding down a smooth surface, Cal's movement speed is greatly impeded by the flat surface, which when paired with the numerous hazards you may encounter and the importance of using your force powers during traversal, and it's easy to understand why you may struggle with this. More often you'll end up getting stuck on the environment, mistiming your jumps, or simply falling into a random hole because you're too busy wrestling with control of your character to focus on where you were going. The only saving grace is that Fallen Order's load times are fast, so you won't have to wait long before you can try again. Aside from that, the parkour in Fallen Order is quite enjoyable and at times very challenging. Often you'll find yourself moving off the main path and tackling one of this game's many platforming challenges, all in the hopes of finding something to improve Cal's survivability in combat. Each world is ripe with many collectibles, many of which are upgrades for yourself. Yet not all of these can be found with the Force. Much like you, your droid companion BD-1 can acquire multiple upgrades throughout your journey which can help you open up areas, whether it be by giving you the means to hack into machinery, slicing open door locks, or allowing you to travel up zip lines. Never before in a Star Wars game has a droid companion been so integral to finding treasure. However, you'll find that the vast majority of the collectibles in this game are actually cosmetic, from new colors and fabrics to adorn, to paint for your ship. But easily my favorite collectibles would have to be the lightsaber parts. Taking inspiration from the real-life Galaxy Edge attraction at Disney World, Fallen Order gives you the opportunity to design your own lightsaber. From the color of your blade to every single individual component of your hilt. Never before in a video game has lightsaber customization been this in depth. I won't deny that building the perfect lightsaber was more than enough motivation for me to scour every inch of these vast levels, but another good reason to explore is to find new ways around a level. Every world in Fallen Order features an interconnected map with a multitude of different pathways and shortcuts. This is important since there's no fast travel in the game, meaning your only option is to simply take the fastest route throughout a level to get where you need to go. This can make backtracking and finding collectibles a little tedious at times, especially if you end up missing an obscure collectible in a part of a level that'll take ages to get back to. The game could have benefited a lot from including a fast travel mechanic, even if you only acquire it at the end of the main story. Granted, there are only 7 planets for you to explore in this game, and out of those 7, only 5 of them feature worlds that you can actively explore, while the other 2 are only there for narrative reasons. Still, each of these worlds features its own large map to navigate and their own secrets to discover. With Respawn providing players with all the tools they needed to explore these incredibly detailed worlds, all that's left for the players to simply take in their surroundings and Fallen Order's stunning music. Composed by Gordy Habb and Stephen Barton, the music of Fallen Order could easily be described as epic yet familiar. While it doesn't explicitly rip tracks from the original series, it does share enough beats for players to recognize while also giving us some new songs that fit perfectly into the Star Wars canon. With every major event in the story accompanied with its own individual piece of music and every world given its own themes, it's clear that a lot of work went into crafting the perfect sci-fi soundtrack. All this work naturally complements the storytelling and allows the more emotional pieces to resonate further with fans and newcomers to this franchise, which naturally harmonizes with the sound effects in-game. With so many worlds and different enemies to combat, this game features a wide selection of natural and unnatural sounds. From the eerie silence within a ruined ship to the uncomfortable squelching present in the swarms of Dathomir, or even the constant rustling throughout the forests of Kashyyyk, which, when paired with the sounds created by living creatures, has allowed the developers to give each world its own unique atmosphere, such as powerful energy-based weapons clashing against each other to blast a fire, or even the loud echoes of ships flying past. Every sound in this game fits perfectly within the Star Wars universe or has been ripped right from the source material. This gives the game an extra layer of authenticity from its creators, helping it to fit perfectly into the new canon. Plus, who doesn't just love listening to a lightsaber ignite? Crafted with Unreal Engine 4, Respawn Entertainment has clearly taken full advantage of this game engine when making Fallen Order. As I mentioned earlier, there are many different locations for the player to explore in Fallen Order, and Respawn has made sure to include as much detail as possible in each. Whether it be by including as much natural fauna as possible, or by having numerous different ships traveling across the sky at any given moment. The opening section on the train alone has enough detail to rival a Hollywood blockbuster. while the numerous alien temples throughout each show a visceral blend of natural degradation and grandeur. Although I won't lie that at times it does appear that the environmental graphics are rendered better than the characters in-game. This is likely a simple result of player perspective. Regardless, unless you're actively looking for this difference, it's barely noticeable in-game. Moreover, it's hard to discredit this game's engine when it's able to craft so many unique and beautiful biomes that fit perfectly with Star Wars aesthetic. Which when paired with some top-notch character design, it's hard not to see why I adore this game so much. Whether in or out of combat, Cal and his opponent's movements maintain a sense of fluidity. Even during the more chaotic action set pieces, there's barely any delay in a character's animation speed, giving the impression that you really are playing the leading role in Disney's latest live-action movie. The only times that I've noticed the animation struggle is during some of the more grandiose boss battles and platforming sections. Yet even then it's a momentary issue that barely detracts from your overall experience. So I think it's safe to say that Jedi Fallen Order is the best video game set in the Star Wars universe in years. While others may enjoy the more multiplayer-focused IPs, I won't deny that I would gladly choose a single-player game set in this vast sci-fi universe over one which is built around microtransactions and kill-stealing any day. The fact is, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is a solid action game with a clear emphasis on environmental exploration and character-driven storytelling. Throughout its entire runtime, I was invested in Cal Kestis' personal struggles while seeking to master this game's intricate combat, tracking hidden collectibles whenever I got the chance in the hopes of crafting the perfect lightsaber for myself. This game didn't simply make you feel like a Jedi, it made Star Wars fun again, and I couldn't be happier. Respawn hit the jackpot with this game, and I can't wait to see what they do next with these characters. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. I'm the Grave Tender, and thank you for joining me on the other side. Please consider subscribing, and I hope you all have a nice day.